Hey, what's going on, everybody? Back for another edition of We Talk LA, and I am once again joined by Juliet Benarila, editor-in-chief of WeLikeLA.com, to discuss some things to do for the upcoming week ahead, including some possible outdoor activities that you might be able to partake in because of recent health orders by LA Public County Health. Juliet, what's going on?
Well, I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Staying inside, staying well. Although it does seem like I said, there are some things opening up for the citizens of Los Angeles County in terms of possible to-dos outside of their homes, assuming that they're willing to do them in small groups and abide by all the requisite social distancing and facial coverings and whatnot. The beaches are open today, right? That just happened today.
Yeah, the beaches are open today. Trailhead parks, and golf courses have been open for a couple days. And in the near future, we might be able to go to tennis courts, pickleball courts, bike paths. The Rose Bowl loop opened early this morning at 6 a.m. So quite a few things. Nothing with group sports, big clusters of people, but a lot of solo or very small group recreational things may open. Once again, it's of course not an invitation to gather, as they keep reminding us, but if people can practice physical distancing with those outside of their households, and if they can agree to wear the face coverings when they think they might be around other people, we should be seeing some active recreation come back soon. Oh, and
Yeah.
another
Oh,
thing.
go ahead.
One thing that people have been asking for and that hasn't been addressed up until now, a lot of people have been asking if we can close certain streets to auto traffic so that pedestrians have more space to run or walk. I know sometimes the sidewalk, especially in my neighborhood actually, can be a little congested where you really have no choice but to go into the street or up into someone's lawn to get 6 feet away if you're.
Yes, literally just happened to me as I was walking my dog before we started this interview. Somebody was on the sidewalk, not wearing a mask, so I'm just like, I'm just going to go in the middle of the street and do a big loopy curve around them. So I
Yeah,
know exactly what you're talking about.
I've been doing that too. But for one of my friends who has a very small not a newborn, but I would say like a baby that's still in a stroller age.
Yes, they don't want to be going in the middle of the street at any point if they can avoid it.
Yeah, and they can't. There's no dodging out of the way. So the county did say that local governments could decide if they have certain streets they want to close down to auto traffic so that pedestrians do have that extra space to safely walk, jog, go on a walk with their family, and then they'll just have more space to be away from other people.
Yeah, two things. One, I just want to call back as I opened with the beaches, and I just want to be super clear, there's no confusion. Even though they are open, it's only for specific forms of active recreation. Just so you don't hear the first 10 seconds of this and turn it off and immediately run out and try to go to like Santa Monica Beach or something. The second thing is that I wanted to talk a little bit more about the health order that LA County Public Health just put out today and how that sort of is continuing the evolution of stage 2, which is where we're at with the reopening of the city. I know there's been a few different like sort of news breaks in the last few days in terms of the state putting out guidelines for restaurants possibly reopening for dine-in service, assuming that they can attest to certain the counties that would want to reopen could attest to certain criteria. Then there was also this LA County Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday where our public health director kind of made some side comments about us possibly having to keep stay at home in effect for the next 3 months. And some people kind of got the wrong idea about what that meant, like the most strict standards would be applied for the next 3 months, when she kind of meant more of like a gradual reopening. So maybe you can just talk us through about like what it would mean if we can get all the way through stage 2, or where we're at in stage 2.
Yeah, so it's always going to be based on a couple of things: what the state says as a whole, and then our individual data. So the state may say, okay, we're ready for restaurants to move forward for dine-in service with these restrictions in certain counties. And the counties themselves have to have, almost no new cases. I think it's In 14 days, they can have no deaths related to COVID-19, and they can only have one case per 10,000 residents. So for some counties, that is possible. There are a few counties where that's already happened.
Right. It seems like the carve out specifically built for the smaller counties that are maybe more rural or more spread out within California that have been clamoring to get themselves back open again.
Mhm.
And that's probably why those stats requirements that you're talking about are so strict, I guess, or so, uh, yeah.
For Los Angeles, it's gonna take us a while. We
Yeah,
have
we're not close to that.
we have more cases and more deaths than any other county in the state by far. We're a much denser county, so it will take us a while to get to those places. Today, Dr. Ferris said that what we'll probably have to do is just wait until the state sets guidelines for the state as a whole, because we're probably never going to, until this whole thing is over, be able to meet those standards. It's just too hard for a county as large and as dense.
Right, unless there was some sort of special carve out. But why would you make a special carve out for what is essentially the epicenter of the COVID outbreak in your state? Because then it would just mean you would open up the whole state at that point. Everybody would be carved out for that
Right.
that reopening. So yeah, I think that's wise advice. I think overall we just need to remind folks that it's going to be a very gradual process. Like our state, our county officials, our city officials have been very cautious in terms of how they want to unroll this thing now, going from the strictest form of stay at home to stage 2, and then whatever stage 3 will look like, and so forth in the coming months. So I guess it's just a good time to remind people, like, it's gonna happen slow, for better or worse. That's just how it's going to be in our county.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that just because the stay at home or safer at home orders are extended, all that means is that you really are safer at home. That is the safest place you can be from when it comes to catching a contagious virus from someone else. However, that does not mean we won't continue to relax certain restrictions as the data allows for it. It also means we may go back to stricter restrictions if we have a surge in infection, or it seems like our hospital capacity might be getting too limited. Um, so you'll just have to keep watching the data and tuning in and finding out what they're saying and looking at the websites. And it's going to be like this until, we have a vaccine or something else that allows us to live COVID-19 3. But as officials have said numerous times, we're just learning how to live with it. And that's going to mean physical distancing whenever we go places. That's going to mean wearing the cloth facial covering. And it's going to be like that for a long time.
I agree. I think just to tack on something there too, it's also about making sure that these newly reopened public spaces we're not overcrowding and not overusing, or else they will just reverse course and toggle back to, like, for example, restricting park access at city parks or county
Right.
parks. I personally was out just to kind of survey what the foot traffic was like and what the mask wearing looked like at Griffith Park on Saturday morning this past weekend. And I would say the crowding was not an issue. Like I was there at like 9 a.m. They'd closed up the road up to the observatory, but you could park kind of near the Greek Theater and walk up like Riverside Trail or some of the other trails right there. And it wasn't like a crazy amount of people, and it was a pretty nice, like, mild temperature morning. But the one park ranger I had a chance to chat with real quick from a distance has said that it was even busier early in the morning, and the biggest complaint that they were having was maybe people weren't wearing the facial coverings as much. But even that didn't seem to be as much a problem, because people did have their facial coverings off. They weren't necessarily standing right by other individuals, and that seems what they cared a lot about. And what, like, I think Garcetti and some of the county folks have said is, like, it matters more if you get in close proximity to somebody that you have your facial covering on than if you're wearing it and, like, nobody's within 100 feet of you or 200 feet of you or something like that.
Yes. That's been a big point of confusion, actually, because some people are saying wear the mask all the time, wear the mask whenever you might be around somebody, and then other agencies are saying you only have to wear it if you think you're going to be within 6 feet of someone. So it definitely depends where you are outside. Obviously, if you are in some remote area and there's no one else around except people in your household, you are free to take off the mask. But if you are hiking in a popular area and you think you may turn a corner and run into someone you don't know, then it's better to have the mask. Across the board, though, they have said that being 6 feet apart is more important than wearing a mask. These two things combined is obviously the best, but the distancing is more important than the mask.
Right. That makes sense. One other note on that: wearing a mask in like 80-degree weather when there's no shade, which is kind of what I was doing for about 10 minutes, just kind of poking around. It is not comfortable. So if you're thinking about going hiking in that kind of weather and you know you're going to have to wear a facial covering, it might give you pause on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick in terms of, okay, so we're moving on to stage two, in like a different phase of stage two, like sort of a sub phase, if you will, of relaxation within the county. But we're also seeing like major tentpole events and event companies are having to sort of like forecast into the future. And the big news that came out today was the LA Phil announced they're canceling the whole summer season for the Hollywood Bowl and the Ford, which I think a lot of people are disappointed about and probably thinking, well, geez, they had to cancel the whole season. Like they couldn't just maybe do half of it or the last third of it or something like that. It seems like a pretty drastic move. But I think that they're forecasting that we're still going to be somewhere in these stages and not allowing larger groups, especially what Dr. Ferrer said today about maybe we could have small gatherings later this year with something I think you referenced in the piece you wrote about it. Maybe you
Yeah.
can talk a little bit about the outlook there and I don't know. It's hard to forecast, but maybe we can just touch on that real quick.
I think that's the thing. I think it's hard to forecast. And I think it's been made pretty clear that we won't get back to a space where we can gather in large groups and be closer than 6 feet and not wear masks until we have a vaccine. Or one of the other things she said was if we had therapeutic medicine that could better treat this, or if we had tests that we could take at home and within 5 minutes we would know if it was safe for us to go outside or not.
Right.
And barring that, I mean, this is still a highly contagious disease that does kill people. So we have to keep protecting ourselves and others, and that means sacrificing a lot of the larger gatherings and the larger events. And those are very far down the road. So I'm not really surprised that people are canceling their larger events, especially ones that cost a lot of money or take a lot of planning, like the Orange County Fair. West Hollywood defunded all of their events, including Carnival, which is on Halloween, so that's kind of far out. I think it's just better safe for these entities to cancel these things now instead of holding out hope and planning and getting vendors lined up. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. One thing I'll add on the Hollywood Bowl too is that I think as part of their, and I'd written about this earlier today, they've created a fundraising campaign where if you already have a ticket to a concert, you're an existing ticket holder, they're asking you to donate it back, and they're doing like a challenge grant, I think, with the Eisners. So maybe by doing the whole season right now and getting ahead of that, it's a way for them to make up some of that lost revenue, because there's a lot of revenue lost by canceling the whole season. They've had to furlough a lot of their workers and make some pretty drastic cuts to everything there. So hopefully they can get some of this money back through some of the donation and charitable campaigns that they've created, and hopefully we can see them again back in 2021. Excuse me.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it doesn't take that long for us to get a vaccine.
Well, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things to do, instead of things we can't do like that, like going to the Hollywood Bowl, maybe we can talk through a few of the items on our list of to-dos for the next week. So we kind of mentioned some of those outdoor recreation things if people do want to venture outside, but there's also more stuff to do at home that they can take part of. Maybe you can walk us through a couple of highlights from this week's list.
Yeah, as usual, we have a lot of museums and institutions that are putting shows online. One of them that I'm kind of excited about is, so the Wallace had this show called The Encounter, which
Yes, I did get to see that, which was amazing. Give us the recap, and then I'll just give you some impressions of my my experience.
So I didn't get to see it because it was sold out, but everyone loved it. And I was disappointed that I didn't get to see it. Although, as far as I understand, it's less about seeing it and more about hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, the audio design of that show was something I've never experienced before. I don't want to spoil too much of the plot. You're like it's like this stuck in the jungle narrative that's just really interesting and almost psychedelic at times. But the audio design of that program was so interesting and like so immersive in how it brought you into the story. I think this is actually one of those things where it would be interesting to do at home, because literally if you were putting on a set of headphones and just doing, listening to this in a quiet space in your home, like on your iPad or something like that, or on a laptop, you could probably get a pretty good experience out of that. Whereas some shows, like a live stage performance, if you're watching it on this little screen, it's not going to do much for you. You lose a lot of that live performer aspect to it. But I think this would be pretty good. And they're doing that for free too, right? You can just listen to it for free
through May 22nd.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's dope. Okay. Yeah, I highly recommend that then for sure. What else you got this week?
Well, I try to find things that are a little more interactive, because I agree that just watching a recording of a performance is that's not the same. So there are a couple interactive things. The Internet Archive has put a bunch of arcade games online that you can play on your computer without any quarters. So if you want to get a little nostalgic, there's a ton of games to choose from. They date back to the 1970s, which is kind of fun. And then also the Renegade Craft Fair has moved online, which I think is pretty cool. They have a virtual fair every weekend through May, and you can browse different artist wares. You can join live stream. You kind of pick and choose what artists you want to go see. So it's similar in a way to going to a vendor booth and that you're interested in. Some of these live streams are just like one thing after another, and you kind of have to sit through things that you're not interested in. But this one, you can kind of pick and choose and maybe buy some gifts. Father's Day is coming up, it's a good way to support local artists. And there's also tutorials, different crafts that you can make at home. So I thought that was actually really good use of that space. There are a few interactive things coming up. There's an interactive radio play called Snap, Crackle, Prop. The story is that you are helping a voice actor come up with a children's cereal commercial, but you have to be the Foley artist, and they'll ask you to make a sound for them, and you have to go find something in your house to create that sound.
Nice.
Which sounds kind of fun and cute and not too taxing. What else? Oh, I kind of like how we are at a point where people are just getting really silly. And there are two things that are on that wavelength. Gabbett Gallery has a new art show coming online called No Pants Required. And all of the art is a humorous take on what we're going through right now. So if you're kind of past the doom and gloom portion and you just need to laugh at our shared confinement, they're going online on the 14th at 10 a.m. You can just browse through those submissions. And then LACMA is also inviting people to use any piece from their public domain collection to make a meme out of. So I feel like LACMA has a lot of really highbrow, meaty stuff going on, but now they also have a meme making program. So
yeah, that's the nature of social media. It all devolves into memes at some point, right?
Yeah, I just
Lowest
feel like
common denominator.
at that point.
All right. Well, yeah, it sounds like a really fun list this week. So I think people will look forward to check that out. Find some distractions. Maybe they'll be checking out an outdoor space that's newly accessible, but they'll probably have lots of time on their hands to do some of these things you mentioned too. So great job on that list. I think that's it for this individual episode. It was good talking with you, Juliet. We'll definitely touch base again next week and kind of recap where we are in stage 2, or maybe if there's an outlook for diving further into reopening, we can talk about that too. But good as always to chat with you. And for everybody out there, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.